Feeling tired even after a full night of sleep is often less about physical exhaustion and more about the invisible mental load a person carries. Many people wake up already feeling drained because their minds never truly rested. Thoughts, worries, and unresolved emotions continue working in the background, preventing deep psychological recovery even when the body appears to be at rest. Chronic mental stimulation plays a major role in this type of exhaustion. When the brain is constantly processing information, anticipating problems, or replaying past events, it consumes a significant amount of energy. This ongoing mental activity keeps the nervous system in a semi-alert state, which interferes with the restorative quality of sleep. Perfectionism is another psychological factor strongly linked to constant tiredness. People who place excessively high expectations on themselves often feel mentally exhausted because they are always monitoring their performance. This self-surveillance creates tension that persists even during moments that are supposed to be relaxing. Emotional suppression also contributes heavily to persistent fatigue. When individuals avoid processing difficult emotions, those emotions do not disappear. Instead, they demand energy to be contained. Over time, this emotional holding pattern becomes exhausting, leading to a sense of heaviness that sleep alone cannot fix. Stress that feels normal is especially dangerous because it often goes unnoticed. Many people adapt to long-term stress by accepting it as part of life, unaware that their bodies and minds are constantly operating in survival mode. This low-grade stress steadily drains energy reserves and disrupts emotional balance. Another overlooked factor is decision fatigue. When someone makes countless decisions every day without adequate mental rest, the brain becomes overwhelmed. Even small choices require cognitive effort, and over time this constant demand leads to mental weariness that manifests as physical tiredness. People who are highly empathetic are particularly vulnerable to this form of exhaustion. Absorbing the emotions of others, worrying about their needs, and carrying emotional responsibility can quietly drain energy. This emotional labor often goes unrecognized, yet it significantly contributes to feeling tired all the time. A lack of psychological boundaries can also intensify fatigue. When individuals struggle to say no or feel responsible for everyone around them, their mental energy becomes fragmented. This constant outward focus leaves little room for genuine mental recovery. Unprocessed trauma is another powerful contributor to ongoing tiredness. The brain remains on high alert when past experiences have not been fully integrated. This hypervigilance consumes energy continuously, making true rest difficult even during sleep. Ultimately, constant fatigue is often a signal rather than a flaw. It reflects a mind that has been working too hard for too long, carrying emotional and cognitive burdens that have not been acknowledged or released. Emotions play a critical role in how energized or exhausted a person feels. When emotions are processed in healthy ways, they flow and resolve naturally. When they are avoided or suppressed, they linger and consume mental resources, leading to a persistent sense of tiredness. Anxiety is one of the most common emotional drivers of chronic fatigue. An anxious mind is constantly scanning for threats, even in safe environments. This state of hyper-awareness keeps the nervous system activated, preventing deep rest and leaving the person feeling drained. Guilt and self-criticism are particularly exhausting emotional states. When someone frequently judges themselves or feels they are never doing enough, their inner dialogue becomes a source of constant pressure. This internal conflict depletes energy far more than most people realize. Sadness that is not fully expressed can also manifest as fatigue. When grief or disappointment is pushed aside instead of processed, it often turns inward. The emotional weight remains present, quietly draining motivation and vitality. People who habitually prioritize others over themselves may experience emotional burnout. Constantly attending to external needs while ignoring personal limits creates imbalance. Over time, this emotional neglect leads to deep exhaustion and a sense of emptiness. Fear of failure can be another hidden source of tiredness. When every task feels emotionally charged with the risk of not being good enough, the brain treats everyday activities as high-stakes situations. This constant pressure exhausts mental and emotional reserves. Emotional inconsistency in relationships can also contribute to fatigue. Unpredictable dynamics force the mind to stay alert and adaptive at all times. This emotional instability prevents relaxation and creates a background sense of tension. Shame is one of the most draining emotions the human mind can carry. It encourages withdrawal, self-monitoring, and emotional isolation. Maintaining this internal state requires significant energy, often resulting in chronic tiredness. People who struggle to identify or name their emotions often feel tired without knowing why. When emotions remain vague and undefined, the brain works harder to manage them. This lack of clarity increases mental effort and reduces emotional efficiency. In many cases, fatigue is the body's way of signaling emotional overload. It invites the individual to slow down, reflect, and address emotional patterns that have been ignored for too long. Sleep alone does not guarantee recovery if the mind remains tense. Restorative rest requires both physical relaxation and psychological safety. When the mind feels threatened, pressured, or overwhelmed, the body struggles to fully recharge. The nervous system plays a central role in this process. If it remains in a state of activation, the body prioritizes alertness over repair. This explains why someone can sleep for many hours and still wake up feeling unrefreshed. Mental rumination significantly interferes with deep rest. Replaying conversations, worrying about the future, or overanalyzing past decisions keeps the brain active during sleep cycles. This reduces the quality of rest even if sleep duration is adequate. People who feel constantly tired often have difficulty relaxing without guilt. When rest feels undeserved, the mind does not fully let go. This internal resistance prevents the body from entering deeper states of recovery. A lack of meaning or fulfillment can also contribute to persistent exhaustion. When daily activities feel disconnected from personal values, motivation decreases and mental fatigue increases. This existential tiredness cannot be resolved by sleep alone. Overstimulation from screens and constant information input further disrupts the mind-body balance. The brain receives signals to stay alert long after the day has ended. This makes it harder to transition into genuine rest. Control-oriented thinking is another factor that prevents restoration. When individuals feel the need to manage everything, their minds struggle to switch off. This constant vigilance blocks the body's natural recovery mechanisms. Emotional safety is essential for deep rest. If a person does not feel safe expressing themselves or setting boundaries, their nervous system remains guarded. This ongoing tension manifests as chronic tiredness. Mind-body disconnection also plays a role. When people ignore physical signals like tension, hunger, or emotional discomfort, the body compensates by slowing down. Fatigue becomes a way to force attention inward. In the end, being always tired is often a message rather than a malfunction. It reflects a complex interaction between thoughts, emotions, and the nervous system, signaling the need for psychological rest, not just physical sleep. One of the most powerful yet overlooked causes of constant tiredness is the set of psychological habits a person repeats daily without awareness. These habits shape how the mind responds to stress, rest, and responsibility. Over time, they quietly drain energy, creating exhaustion that feels permanent and unexplained. Overthinking is one of the most energy-consuming mental habits. When the mind constantly analyzes possibilities, outcomes, and mistakes, it never truly rests. Even moments of silence become mentally loud, filled with internal dialogue that prevents relaxation and recovery. Another draining habit is living in a constant state of anticipation. When people are always preparing for what comes next, the mind stays in the future instead of the present. This keeps the nervous system activated and makes genuine rest feel impossible, even during downtime. People-pleasing tendencies also play a major role in chronic fatigue. Constantly adjusting behavior to meet others' expectations requires continuous emotional monitoring. This self-regulation consumes mental energy and creates exhaustion that builds gradually but persistently. The habit of self-neglect is especially damaging. Ignoring personal needs, emotions, and limits may feel productive or responsible in the short term, but it teaches the mind that rest is secondary. Over time, the body responds with deep fatigue as a form of protest. Catastrophic thinking is another psychological pattern that drains energy. When the mind consistently expects the worst, it prepares for danger that never arrives. This repeated activation of stress responses exhausts the system and reduces emotional resilience. Difficulty letting go of control also contributes to feeling tired all the time. When individuals believe they must manage everything perfectly, their minds remain alert even in safe situations. This constant vigilance prevents the nervous system from shifting into a restorative state. Internal pressure to be constantly productive creates a subtle but powerful form of exhaustion. When rest feels unearned or lazy, the mind does not allow itself to fully disengage. As a result, even breaks fail to restore energy. Emotional avoidance is another habit with a high energetic cost. Suppressing feelings requires continuous effort, as the mind must keep emotional content out of awareness. This ongoing internal struggle slowly depletes mental strength. Negative self-talk compounds fatigue by turning the mind into a hostile environment. When thoughts are critical or dismissive, the brain operates under constant threat. This emotional stress drains energy far more quickly than physical effort. Living disconnected from personal values also contributes to exhaustion. When actions are driven by obligation rather than meaning, motivation weakens and mental fatigue increases. The mind struggles to sustain energy without a sense of purpose. Ultimately, these psychological habits do not cause tiredness overnight. They wear a person down slowly, quietly, and consistently. Recognizing them is often the first step toward real rest, because awareness allows the mind to release patterns that no longer serve it.